Hello, good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise this Monday morning. I am Chamberlain. So,
I'm Neota Igwe. Good to have you here.
It's good to have you back, Chamberlain. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Ayo Makine. Today is September 25. It's a Monday morning, and something is supposed to happen today, according to the Trade Union Congress, who've threatened for a while now to embark on an indefinite strike and vow to ground economic activities in Lagos over the ban of the operations of its affiliate union, the Road Transport Employers Association of Nigeria, RTAN. Of course, TUC said that it's not just going to be one association, but all its affiliate unions, including Pengasan, Association of Senior Civil Servants of Nigeria, Association of Senior Staff of Banks, Insurance and Financial Institutions, among others, are expected to join the strike. This, of course, is protracted. Needless to say, the Lagos State government has also come out to make a statement about that and saying that there is no need for the TUC to embark on that protest because, according to the Commissioner for Information and Strategy, the protest is unnecessary because it is considering the fact that government has appealed the judgment that is backing or powering the resolve of the TUC. It says that the Lagos State government has a pending application for stay of execution of the said judgment. Therefore, according to the government, the protest will be in breach of the rule of law, which expects both parties to maintain the status quo pending the determination of the application for a stay of action. You know, when we get to this kind of crossroads, the question that's on my mind is, okay, at what point do these things just happen? This conversation we are having dates back not just days or weeks, they date back months. How come we have not been able to get to the point where we have a resolution of these issues? That's what is concerning for me, guys.
Well, much more than that. I believe that the Lagos State government is concerned, about stability between and amongst the leadership of these unions in Lagos. Either it's the RTEAN, Road Transport Employers Association of Nigeria, or the NURTW. And the disagreements go as far back as, early last year, when there was crisis, which also saw the appointment of one of the union leaders of the transport unions, MC Oluomo, as the chairman committee of the Lagos State Parks and Gardens Agency. And that drew quite a number of reactions, considering his relationship with the Lagos State government. But the concern is about stability. And I also recall that last year, the Lagos State government tried to broker peace, between the leadership, amongst the leadership of the NURTW back in 2022. So that really is the goal, because it doesn't augur well for transportation in Lagos, which is still quite, dependent on a lot of the yellow buses in Lagos. Well, that's set to change. But really what's important is, the politicization of, one of the agencies in Lagos. I'm wondering, the concern for me is, what's the position of the Lagos State Parks and Gardens agencies, which is intervening, in this and saying that, look, it's not supposed to, the strike is not supposed to go on because, rightfully so, there's been an appeal. But what's the interest of the Lagos State Parks and Gardens? Is it protecting the interest of its workers, which has a right to unionize, or is it protecting the interest of the Lagos State government, which would be understandable, really? And then the TUC on the one hand, on the other hand, one must question its zeal to embark on a strike in Lagos, when at the national level, other matters of pressing concern about, the interest of workers following the removal of fuel subsidy, it's seem not to be as, committed to the, call for strike by the national body of the NLC. These are the questions that I would rather ask, about the interests of the bodies at the different level. Neota and Chamberlain.
Oh, well, so two things I'll say. One, the best preparation for what's going to happen tomorrow is doing your best today. So question is, did Lagos State government, or whichever government as the case may be, do its best before we are here now? Before today, did they do their best to get to this? The other thing is also a statement credited to the the president of the Senate, Senator govt, where he says, government is about the people.
Yeah.
Your leadership, everything you're doing is about the people. So if the people you are governing are complaining, then you need to step back a little bit. Sometimes there are two things most times most leaders appear to do in Nigeria. Is either they throw money at it or they throw the law at you. So the question is, how much of conversations have been had? You've gone to appeal, but they've told you, it's not, I don't think it's today or this weekend that TUC started talking about the fact we're going to do this, we're going to do this. Were there any conversations? Were they called to the table? And at the table, that's the other side. So you called them to the table.
Yeah.
What were you talking about? What kind of words were you using at each other? What was the atmosphere like? I mean, is it about, okay, look, is there a place where we can come to an agreement? Because it's all about people. And people need to understand it's about agreement. When we have conversations and I'm talking to you, you understand what I'm saying? It's a back and forth and we say, okay, we have agreed on this. So, TUC, Lagos, what's happening?
Well, yeah, I mean, TUC say they've been having meetings. They've tried to reach out several times. They've written letters. They've done as much as they think they can with the Lagos state government on this matter, proscribing a legally registered trade union. That's the crux of the matter, by the way, which TUC says they've got no right to do that. And I think I heard Ayo say that Lagos say they've appealed. But if they've appealed, do they have a stay of execution? I think Lagos, they should know better, that if you appeal, you don't have a stay, what do you expect the other people to do? Because, I mean, I did ask Labour and several people. They said, well, yeah, they've appealed, but there's no stay of execution. So if you don't have it, why are you not obeying the judgment? And so why is it taking this long? Because it's very sad, actually, for us to come down to regular people have to go about their normal businesses. Now they will be affected because of this matter. Sometimes it just comes across as though it's tantamount to taking the people for granted if you allow it get to this point all the time. So why is it that because at the end of the day, they still have to go back to the table to sort these matters out? Because Labour now says, well, you're trying to muzzle us, so we will apply all tools of trade unionism in this matter and see how this can resolve. And sometimes you just ask yourself, does it have to come to this? The other day, NLC went to strike so that certain people in NURT, some of those who were arrested, now they've been released, we understand, over the weekend. So this kind of matters, government need to handle them better, because it's in this same country where if government gets a judgment from industrial courts, they always will sing to high heavens about it in terms of how, whether it's ASU or trade union, should not disobey the court. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Nobody should be above the law. If you don't have a stay, you know that you have to do certain things. And so, who knows? Unfortunately, in Lagos now, which is the commercial capital, businesses will be affected because TUC says we're pressing on with this matter today.
That's unless within the last 2-3 hours they change their mind.
Who knows? Because it's just unfortunate, because regular people can't afford to keep taking the hits all the time when this kind of things happen, because there are several prizes which will come to as we progress anyways. But guys in Lagos, you just have to keep watch and see what it is you can do to ensure that businesses are not affected or don't get bearing the brunt of this matter. So we'll keep tabs on that one and bring them to you as we progress. But in the meantime, let's take you through some of the dailies here this morning. And we will start with Vanguard newspaper. Almost a similar matter, which we started out with here today. Labour matters. NLC battles OPS over stand on planned nationwide strike. So we clearly have not heard the last of all of this back and forth about strike or no strike. Look at the riders. NLC alleges plot to sabotage struggle on palliatives. Yeah, our favorite word yet again. Economy can't afford nationwide strike. OPS insists, urges FG, NLC to avert industrial action by all means. Asks FG to demonstrate good faith in keeping promises. Pro-labor CSOs urge NLC to declare indefinite strike. Pledge to support NLC in fighting for workers. And so the narrative goes again. And oh dear, who knows? It's really sad. If as tough as the economic situation is, yeah, we still have more challenges, more hurdles that we all have to face as a result of this one. And then look at this at the bottom strip here. Manufacturers incur heavy losses as forex crisis, inflation bites harder. Guys, the exchange naira to the dollar over the weekend was alarming. In the other window, it seems to have crossed that
1,005
dreaded
per dollar.
The dreaded 1,000 naira. It's crossed, right? Oh,
as at Saturday, Monday was about 1,005.
wow. So what now? What now? Why? What? I mean, sometimes you just don't know what questions to ask anymore after you've gone through this time and again. But who knows, with the new CBN governor,
Yes.
what magic is he going to perform?
He's got a magic.
If we're not manufacturing, if companies are closing down and leaving the country. So, what exactly? Well, I'd like to be wrong on this one, but of course we're optimistic and hopeful, but you know that that's not a strategy. They've got to come up with way more than that to ensure that they arrest this decline of things going south, as it were. And as though we're not taking enough hits, kidnap in Zamfara. Rescue remaining female varsity students. Tinubu orders security agencies grappling with security matters yet again. So there you go. That's Vanguard this morning.
Well, as they say, it rains before it pours. And maybe the new CBN governor has an ace up his sleeve that he's yet to reveal. Hopeful. I have here The Guardian, and they start out with despite 2.8 trillion naira subsidy, power averages 3,000 megawatts in 10 years.
Woo.
That's where they start from. I remember last week we had the collapse of the grids a couple of times. I'll go to page 6 and you see a breakdown, more detail.
Where is the Minister of Power? What is he doing? What's his plan? Do you know? Can somebody tell me?
Okay, so Chamberlain, there is a Minister of Power. There are commissioners of power in some states, and some states have started doing, putting out the legal backings for their venture into the power sector. So hopefully this might change in a couple of months. But how prepared?
Because I look at all that government say they want to do, how they want to implement this and that. Can we take off if we don't have steady power supply? Can we?
There is no investment, no industrialization without power. And the power is not just all manner of...
Shouldn't it be on the front pages all over the media telling Nigerians what he wants to do with that sector? What? Did he go to Anga with the president? Is he back in the country? What are his plans?
Calm down. He's just been...
Some of you guys tell me.
He's just been...
Are you booking?
He has just been appointed.
Has he called any one of you guys?
He's trying to find his feet.
How many weeks down the line?
He's getting briefs. And as I said, they are...
He's getting what?
They are commissioners of power. Chamberlain, calm down. They are commissioners of power.
Listen, remember, the president said, don't pity me on this job.
No, we're not
So
pitying.
no minister has an excuse. None of them. None of them will or should. It will not be acceptable by anybody. No.
Okay, all right.
So they have to do something.
No pity. Please come out, Minister of Power, commissioners of power. Let us know what you're planning to do with the power sector.
Speak up.
Real quick. But let's move on real quick. So you see the breakdown, how much costs 2.8 trillion electricity subsidies between 2015 and 2023. So that subsidy hasn't been removed, I guess, if we're having this, according to the Guardian here.
Do you know some people have increased the price of diesel in this Abuja?
Yes, indeed.
Quietly?
Yes, indeed.
Oh, boy.
But come, it's supposed to be a deregulated market, so
I hear you.
they can change their prices as they please.
Yes, sir.
But then, when would the refineries kick in? That's a story for another day. But let's move. Paris Climate Agreement, Nigeria and the hypocrisies of polluter countries. Climate change, it's a serious matter, and we need to do something real quick about that. But Chamberlain, say this, oil theft, Navy arrest 8 vessels laden with diesel in rivers.
You know what someone asked me? I said, look, Why is it that they keep arresting those people, keep burning them? Refineries are not working. What's going on with this? Can't we find a way to make these things work?
My concern, Chamberlain, is not just about that they're arresting and burning. It's the effect on the environment. We're talking about climate change. We're talking about how deteriorating our environment continues to be. And yet we continue to burn these products. Then 10 knots in Tinubu's lofty debt servicing plan. You have to get to page 12 to see those 10 knots as mentioned here. And finally, from here, private sector CSOs kick as NLC decides on indefinite strike tomorrow. Go to page 6 to find out what's going to happen. Oh boy. That's it from The Guardian.
And up next is This Nigeria. It seems somebody returned with a huge dose of anger, and you just might get angrier when you hear this, Chamberlain. Look at the front page of This Nigeria. Get those who pocketed $15 billion, 200 billion naira oil revenue, Serap tells Tinubu, urges implementation of all recommendations by NATI in its 2021 report. And that report, compels food for thought and, a rethink over and over again. The financial liabilities between the NNPCL and the NUPRC, according to that report, is more than $20 billion. And NATI is also asking what happened to the 200 billion naira revenue committed to revamping the refineries in the year 2021. NATI is saying that that fund may be missing, and the government missed the target of delivering on the refineries in 2022, and we're hearing yet again that in 2023 the refineries will be up and running by the end of the year. The question is, were more funds besides this 200 billion naira committed to revamping the refineries in 2023? And if they were, how much was committed this time around to revamping the refineries? And over the years, Ayo, how much has been committed to revamping the refineries in total?
I think you already assigned who should respond to this. So Chamberlain, take your pen and paper and make the notes that you need to make.
Oh dear.
Because I just choose to be optimistic, Popola. I just choose.
Regardless of the circumstances,
I just choose,
right?
because if you look at, we deal with these issues every day in the media. So if you allow these issues to get to you, you would lose every sense of hope in getting anything done in the country and for the country. Every one of us, we're chipping in our bits for nation building one way or the other. The question that Serap is asking here is actually quite tenable, and I'm hoping that someone will be able to respond to them.
Interesting. And we must hold the new Minister of Petroleum, State, Oil and Gas, Senator Heineken Lokobri, by his word. He says the Port Harcourt refinery will be ready by the end of the year. So it's just 2 months to the end of the year. So what's happening? What's the status report as at today? Let's go, right beside the nameplate on the front page of This Nigeria this morning. It says, UNGA 78, Nigeria targets 1 million jobs, launches talent export program. Ayo, talent export program. Just when we're lamenting that, we shouldn't be exporting our raw materials, that if we did, we're exporting jobs. And now we're considering a talent export program.
Well, the objective,
whose proposal is this?
I think the president the Minister of Industry and all of them, I think in that ministry, that's where it's coming from. The back end to this, of course, the details you find on the inside pages, page 26 to be precise. But one of the things that we understand is that it's an attempt by the federal government to shore up its inflow of forex into the country, that if we export, these talents, we'll get something in return. I'm hoping that there is some structure around it, because already we have been exporting our talents.
Absolutely.
Our artists continue to shut down the O2 in the UK, and any stadium or any event facility worth its salt all over the world. The Burna Boys of this world, the Davidos of this world, the WizKids of this world, they shut down the Ashakes of this world. They shut down these venues, packing them full with tens of thousands of people. How much of that is coming back to Nigeria? Secondly, I think it's in the second year running that the awards, the headies has held outside of the country. How much of the revenue from that is come back to Nigeria in terms of hard currency? So it will be interesting to find out what the structures are that will help this program. Laudable as
and it is exactly for these reasons that you have, brilliantly marshaled out, that I'm wondering if this is well thought out, because we're still, agitating over the consequences of the brain drain in Nigeria.
Well, to be fair,
in the medical sector and in other sectors. To
be fair,
we're beginning to see in the education sector as well.
To be fair, from time to time, I think it's the Ministry of Finance or someone, informs us from time to time how much is repatriated back to Nigeria from diasporans, Nigerians in diaspora. All of that works, and I think this is part of the structure. The only question that I continue to ask is, I hope there are structures around it, and I hope, as you said, it has been well thought out, because the opportunities are there for us to bring this forex into the country, but what are the structures to ensure that people do that?
Well, I think it's something for the new CBN governor to think about. One more story before we exit this Nigeria this morning, and it's at the bottom strip. FCTA revokes 22 fresh plots, gives 90 days to 189 others to regularize titles. And now this may be a follow-up to the big one from last week, where a number of prominent Nigerians, politically exposed persons, had their land allocations revoked. If you're interested, it's a page 11 read. Let's leave it there for this Nigeria.
The Leadership newspaper tends to hint at some of the issues you raised, Chamberlain and Nelta. On the front page of the Leadership, you have that one. You were asking what the commissioners of states that have electricity laws are doing. Well, how about the ones in charge of the environment? Despite warning, states caught unprepared for flood. That story is on page 4 of the Leadership newspaper, and look at the graphics on the front page. Benue, Niger designate 37 centers as IDP camps. Katsina, Kebbi, Lagos, Plateau record 15 deaths and 33,983 Nigerians affected in 10 states. That's according to NEMA. So how about that? We saw it coming, and all the agencies in charge of our environment pointed at this, and we still have this. Question is why? That's the Leadership, the lead story of the Leadership newspaper. But right above that main story, rumpus in civil service over new tenure system. Find that on page 7. Is there someone doing something to ensure that civil service is more effective? Question. Right above the nameplate, Tribunal, save Kano from chaos. Islamic clerics warn, and Tinubu orders rescue of abducted female varsity students. Find the details of that on the inside pages. And talking about the rule of law, look at the bottom of the page, where beside, on the right side, Tribunal decides Sanwo-Olu's fate today. Well, how many hours, Judge? I'm not even going to go there. That's the Leadership newspaper this morning.
So what a day is going to be for Lagos and Lagosians. Well, if you think it's anger bookie, some think it's righteous indignation. Other people think it's different things. So I don't know which Nigerian is happy about power sector in this country. If you are, bookie, then I have to ask you again. And I wonder which country you're living in. Look at New Telegraph this morning. ACF laments Zamfara female students' abduction. Says it's one too many. Warns of effects. Oh, I think it's typo. Warns of, probably the thing say, warns of effects on girl child education, not effects. Asks FG to rejig security architecture, strategize on combating insecurity. Tinubu orders students rescue, says no justification for kidnap. So, there you go. And then above that list story, it's obvious. FG still subsidizing fuel ascribed to Atiku. Power Ministry to validate national grids capacity. So you see, I'm not the only one thinking about that. So they're also there. I mean, it's here for everyone to see. So if they're still subsidizing fuel, guys, so what's the hoopla about the removal of subsidy? Was it? I think government might have to respond to this if they still are subsidizing fuel. So what's all that about subsidy removal, which has plunged us into what we are now 620 naira per litre in some parts of Abuja and more?
Darkness around the petroleum industry in Nigeria will need more than the power sector to light it up.
Let there be light.
And as they say, there was light. Hopefully light will come real quick. But let's see what the Abuja Inquirer has here. And start out with that matter. Ground rent, CBN, police, IBB golf course to top debtors list. So FCTA or FCD, I don't know which one of them is going to have to go collecting this. The CBN, the police, IBB Golf Club, top debtors list.
What happens if they don't pay within the timeline?
Well, let's see if the hurricane will sweep through. But so far, Wiki recovers 1.9 billion naira of 34 billion naira owed. Revokes additional 25 plots. That's different from the 189 others that are getting 3 months grace to build. Build or forget it in 3 months. Is it possible to finish building in 3 months? Or is it just for them to start the construction process? Wow. Well, that's the lead story.
Who knows if Inquirer will follow through on this story and see what's going to happen.
I hope Abuja Inquirer will keep tabs on this. Because this paper is about Abuja, so let's see if they can keep us abreast, and we will be keeping tabs on this as well. Hear this one again about Abuja. Will demolish, arrest violators of Abuja Master Plan, Development Control, page 5. And yet last week someone mentioned at the villa it was not part of the master plan.
Whoa,
so would they go in that direction? Someone mentioned it. I didn't say it's me, but let's see. It said
that
we will demolish.
Be the day.
But I do know that master plans are amended once.
Wait. Are you saying
there going to be
the
an
villa
amendment?
is not part of the master plan?
I did not say. Little bird, someone mentioned. I didn't say.
FCT will reply you.
Well, let's hope that it will be clarified. Let's get some clarifications on all of this. But above the nameplate, that's the last one. NDLEA seizes large cache of drugs in Abuja. NDLEA is not relenting. And I guess the drug dealers are not relenting as well. That's it from the Abuja Inquirer.
And up next this morning is Daily Independent. Well, just some counsel for you guys. Be careful about the land you purchase in Abuja. Hurricane Wiki may just come after you. That's just an aside. Daily Independent is up next this morning, and it leads with something quite compelling. It says, new acting CBN governor deputy's assumption of office wrong. There's just one rider, and it pretty much tells the story. Lawyers, economists say it's patent illegality, presumptuous. And the meat of the story really is that, his assumption of office without approval of the National Assembly, the Senate now, is illegal. Well, they're on recess, and we've had the committee meeting, that's the monetary review meeting, has been put on hold, which is really supposed to move, the monetary policy of the country forward. Well, that's just, an expansion of what the possibilities may be, but according to our lawyers, an illegality remains an illegality. If you're interested in the story, it's on the inside pages, page 29 to be precise. There are a few other stories on the front page. Follow-up to the death of the 27-year-old musician. Mohbad reaped reward of his actions while alive, says Bakari. That's a big one there. And, a few other stories. Tinubu asks agencies to rescue abducted Zamfara students. Says they were only in pursuit of quality education. That's according to the rendering of, some other headlines. Anyway, the question is education qualitative as, described by the president? And lastly, UNIZIC dismisses 2 lecturers, suspends 6 for fraud extortion. That's a page 29 read. Let's leave it there for Daily Independent.
I'm still with States this morning on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. And it's related to the Abuja story, but look at it. FCT states lose trillions of naira to unpaid ground rents. FCTA owed 34 billion naira, recovers 2 billion in 2 days. Why states are not getting ground rents? That's, you need to find out who said that. Defaulters risk revocation of titles. That's according to lawyers. Find the details on page 4 of the paper. That picture you see on the front page is of streets and houses submerged by flood in communities in Cross River State yesterday. Definitely not something cheery, but that's a reality. So when are the states going to get back their trillions of unpaid ground rents? Trillions of naira, by the way. And the Daily Trust newspaper brings us to the end of a look at some of the dailies this morning. But right after this, it's time to get into the grind. Stay with us.
We are here not to talk politics. We are here to present a future to you. A future of a country that is so rich, endowed, and highly populated, very dynamic, unique in its culture, unique in our tradition, unique in our ethnicity. A country we determine that we make our prosperity possible if only we use that God-given opportunity of diversity for prosperity of Nigerians. We're sure to do that. We're not poor in knowledge. We are not poor in human resources. We are not poor in capital resources. We're only poor in management and leadership. And that is why I ran for president, to help all of us mold the soul of our country in the right direction.
Yes, indeed, Dr. Sam Adeyemi, strategic leadership consultant, joins us now. I know you may be wondering, are we talking about the same person? Well, yes, he is. I guess he will start with telling us what he's been up to. Good morning, Dr. Adeyemi. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Good morning, Chamberlain, and thank you for having me on the program today.
Yes, indeed, and we appreciate your keeping up very in the wee hours of the morning for this particular interview. Perhaps we should start by telling us, I mean, yes, we know day start, but what have you been up to lately?
Well, I have been pushing my leadership message on a global dimension. Just about a week ago, we hosted a conference in Maryland, USA. We call it the Dear Leader Live Conference, where we had loads and loads of leaders, and we were sharing the leadership message because leadership is probably the world's greatest need right now. When you're dealing with uncertainty, unpredictability at the level at which you have it in our world, dealing with a lot of disruptions, what you need is leadership.
I mean, I don't know if you heard the president there talk about saying that we are poor in leadership, I think it's in management, and so raises yet again, the leadership question. Why do you think we struggle with getting these aspects of our lives right in this country, first and foremost?
Well, thank you. I think the challenge is that when we try to deal with the issue, we cut leaves, we don't dig out the roots. First, I'll summarize it in one word: culture. Experts tell us now that culture will eat your strategy for lunch. As a consultant, one major thing that can be frustrating is for you to advise your clients. We consultants do that a lot. We submit reports. But we've come to find out that most of the time, organizations and even nations are unable to use the advice that we give. Because while the leader may be excited about the prospect of change, when they get to the point where they really want to execute the change, then they confront culture. Let me simplify it. Why do many people make New Year resolutions and they eventually find out 2 or 3 weeks into the new year that they are back to their old selves? Habits. What habit is to the individual is exactly what culture is to a group, organization, or nation. Before long, we're back to our default ways of thinking and ways of behavior, and they frustrate any attempt for us to create change. It's the same thing for us when it comes to leadership. We have a leadership culture in Africa. And it's not only Africa. All over the world, you have leadership culture. It's different. But for Africa, it's peculiar. And my hypothesis is that our original leadership culture is built on the monarchical structure of government, right? So you find out that in that system, the leader is superior to the people that are being led. The leader is powerful, and the follower is almost powerless, almost a slave. In fact, I come from the Yoruba culture. And when I look at the words that we use in leadership, everything revolves around the power of the king. We call the market Oja Oba. We call the farm Okuoba. Even government, we call it Ijo Oba. Okay, so the king's farm, the king's market, and government is the king's assembly. So until we restructure that in our mindsets, you will find out in our families, in our businesses, even in government, and interestingly, even our religious institutions, it's that structure of government where the leader is superior to the one being led. And as long as that is there, management of resources becomes a problem, because the people at the top who are so powerful use that power, usually political power, to channel economic resources to benefit themselves and those close to them. So we are unable to make optimum use of our resources. That's what management is about. Optimum use of resources. The most valuable resources of any country, most valuable assets are human beings. And when it comes to that, we're also underusing the potential in human lives.
In 2015, when we hosted you, you also said cultural approach to leadership is a problem in Nigeria. And I know you've interacted with several people over there, so I'm just wondering, several questions in my head about this. I mean, How deep-rooted is this? Does language affect it? Because here, when they recruit persons, for instance, in leadership, in politics, for instance, they say they're looking for the best people. Some of them have trainings overseas. They come back here, but we're still grappling with some challenges here. So does that suggest that we're not making any progress whatsoever?
Well, the indices are there for us to see. You were speaking earlier from the news about the exchange rate of the naira to the dollar, that it's crossed the threshold of 1,000 naira to the dollar.
Yeah.
And I remember that just 25 years ago, 1998, the naira was 22 naira, if I'm correct, 22 naira to the dollar. So it's continuous depreciation. Nations compete for resources against other nations. We're not doing well. We're incapable of doing so. That's why we need to deal with the culture. We are not addressing it yet. In fact, when you need to change people's mindsets, change behavior so that you can get the results that you need, that exactly is when you need leadership. So you ask, who really is addressing the leadership problem? It's good we have elections, right? But winning an election does not make you a good leader. It gives you the opportunity to lead. Where are we learning to lead, really? Is leadership in the curriculum in our schools yet? How many leadership schools do we have? Those of us that occupy leadership positions, how many books have we read on leadership? How many trainings have we attended on leadership? Where have we served as apprentices? So we really need to address leadership development. I'll tell you what makes it different, maybe in a climate like the United States, for example. When you're in primary school or secondary school, they're already teaching you leadership. You don't teach a kid that much theory on leadership. It's practicals. They take them out to orphanages, take them out, they insist on them volunteering, okay? When you apply to go to university, they say you should write a personal statement. One major thing they're looking for there is your volunteering. If you don't volunteer, they know you are going to be a liability on the society. They're not likely to give you admission. They want to see where you have served for free, because leadership is about service. So when you have a society where that is absent, and there's a lot of poverty, a lot of deprivation, and everybody's dream is just to be able to break through, to focus on what to get. You allow some, and then somebody like that becomes a managing director, a CEO, a governor. It doesn't matter. The major preoccupation will be consuming resources. So I'm saying that at a national level, we need to act with urgency, or else we just keep thinking it won't get worse. But here we are. This new political, right?
If I may come in here, Nels out here. I was going to ask you the question of differentiating leadership from management, but you kind of like struck it when you said winning an election doesn't make you a leader. Because in the president's statement, it says Nigeria is not poor in resources. Nigeria is blessed all around. But the question is leadership and management, which some will say they are two different sides of the same coin. So at what point, how do we manage this?
Well, management, again, is optimum use of resources. Now, some resources are tangible, some are intangible. Resources include money, resources include equipment, it includes property, right? And then people. The leadership side focuses mainly on people. Everything rises and falls on the quality of people, right? Management ensures efficiency, right? That you're getting the most value out of the resources you have. You're using the least money to get the most results, the least number of people, the least equipment, the least amount of time to get your best resources. Leadership, on the other hand, like I said, focuses more on people and is more strategic. Stephen R. Covey described it this way in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you have to cut a bush, the manager is the one that ensures that he measures out, or he or she measures out the portions of grass to cut, gives each person the tool to use, make sure they are sharp, comes back to make sure that you cut the correct height of the grass. He said leadership is for someone to find the tallest tree in that bush and to climb it to the top to even be sure we're cutting the right bush in the first place. So that's why leadership needs to come first, because it's the one that has the widest view and actually considers the future, helps us to take a position now so that we can get the best results we can get for the future. We need leadership desperately.
Okay, so in our climb now, we've had people come into different positions. You talked about the structure we have, which is the monarchical structure, so to speak. And it looks as if they're not ready to budge from that position of I'm in charge, everybody else falls under, to even give room for the eggheads that have been brought in to do the bit they need to do. Again, I ask the question, how do we move from this? How? Who would even listen and bail the cat so that we can move forward? Because we're kind of like in a circle, going around the same circle, the same mountain over and over again. How do we move?
Thank you. We seem to be in a conundrum, honestly. And we are amazing people. We have phenomenal amount. Everybody in the family is sick. Everybody knows everybody is sick, right? But you need a doctor to help you diagnose what the problem is so that we can prescribe the right medicine. So if this sickness is not going away, maybe we've not even been able to diagnose what the real problem is. Who is supposed to create the solution? So when you are dealing with culture, it's not only about the people occupying position, it's about the whole society. It's about the whole country, right? So first, the definition of leadership has shifted. It's not just about occupying a position. Leadership is the ability to influence one or more people to achieve a goal. Once you bring the definition down to influence, then you realize leadership happens at all levels. All of us are into leadership. If you ever persuaded your friend to go with you to buy sweets, you led your friend, right? So we should not discount the influence of parents, the influence of teachers in schools, the influence of bosses in the office, the influence of even friends, right? So leadership is influence. Secondly, leadership is a set of skills, character qualities and skills. They can be learned. This was what changed my own life. I never thought that I had leadership capacity until an elderly reverend gentleman in my church gave me a book to read, the first book ever I would read on leadership, Christian Leadership by Donald S. Altman. And the most important thing I took from the book was the argument of the author that those old ideas that few people are born to lead, everybody else is born to follow, as much as they were pushed by powerful philosophers like Socrates, and so on, he said they have expired. Everyone has the ability to lead. He listed the qualities of leaders. When I looked at them, I had some of them. Then he said the ones you don't have, you can cultivate. My call, therefore, is to all of us. This idea of, abandoning the responsibility for influence to people that occupy positions is not going to help us. All of us right now need to cultivate our leadership skills. It is the average leadership quotient of the nation that will determine how fast we move. The people in the elite class, there is nowhere they have deliberately, empowered citizens like that, especially when in a climate like ours, there's so much poverty and deprivation, you want to run away from it as far as possible. No, nobody is going to empower others. It is possible to do so. The people in the Middle East are doing it with monarchical systems because they have empathy for their citizens. They are ready to empower them. But in our own culture, especially on our continent, we've not seen it happen yet, which means we then need all of us to develop our leadership capacity. When we do it, we will hold leaders accountable. Remember, in the monarchical system, accountability is very weak. In Yoruba culture, we call our king Kabiyosi. Nobody can hold you accountable to do anything. Now that's misery, loaded, raised to power 1,000. we need to hold leaders accountable. That's what you're supposed to do in a democracy, because all of us are equal, from president to citizen. So these are the places where we need to begin to shift the ideas. And waiting for a governor or president to do that may not pay us on the long run. All of us actually need to do it. That's why I'm here.
Well, Dr. Adeyemi, it's interesting that you touched on the monarchical system in the Middle East, because that's the question I was going to ask you first. Because in the Middle East, just as you mentioned, they have monarchical systems that work for them. I don't know whether they were ever under any kind of colonialism or anything. Maybe that is why they always had their own system. What is it, if there is anything, that can be compared to their own monarchical system that works for them and our own that seems to not be working for us? Add that to the fact that now we have put democracy in the mix.
Well, thank you so much. You know, we want to practice democracy, but we don't have a foundation to build it on. I'll say that it comes down to values. Values, the standards of behavior, the principles that a society has adopted for itself. Now, I'll tell you that human history has not favored monarchical rule. You remember what Lord Aldous Huxley said: power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Human nature has not done well with the monarchical structure of government. It's like it makes people crazy. What we have in the Middle East is fantastic. And I want to say that it's something that happened gradually, started basically with the United Arab Emirates. And when neighboring countries saw the development, and then Saudi Arabia, and when neighboring countries saw what was going on, they too began to adopt the changes gradually, because the quality of life, you know, improved drastically in the UAE. They just happen to have benevolent, what you call benevolent dictators, so to speak. But in Africa, honestly, we have not shown the capacity. We've not shown the capacity yet to demonstrate that with power, we can have empathy and we can empower the average citizen. So this is what happened. Most of the developed part of the world is under democratic rule. That's the truth, right? That's why they say democracy is the best form of government. The change happened for them, started for them from France with the French Revolution. Right? The citizens got tired. They got tired, sacked the monarchy, and then established some new values. One of them principally being equality. One of the three basic, values in France, equality. And the neighboring countries were compelled to adjust. The United States then started on a brand new note altogether, and you will notice we adjudge all these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. That's the foundation the US was built on. We were not built on that foundation. So we actually need to rethink right now, what do we want to do? Where do we want to go? Where do we want to go from here? What are our values, right? What are our values? We have values in our national anthem. We have values in our national pledge. But we wrote them because countries are supposed to have national anthem and national pledge. They really don't guide our behavior. We have love there, we have honesty, other beautiful values. So I would say it comes down to values. We've not demonstrated the courage needed to shift our belief systems and our behavior when it comes to leadership.
It sounds to me, Dr. Adeyemi, you're saying this is almost hopeless. Nigeria is 63 in October, on October 1, Sunday to be precise, and We've been talking about the same thing over the years. I remember interviewing one of the foremost nationalists in the country at some point, and I asked him the pointed question, what did you guys have in mind when you were asking for independence of Nigeria? And he told us that they didn't have anything in mind. They just wanted the colonial masters to go. And the same thing has repeated itself down through the ages. We just wanted the military to go, the military left, and then now we're struggling with democracy and all of those things. So the question that I want to ask you then is, there can be no leadership without vision. Help us understand whether or not that is the truth. If that is the truth, who bears the cart in terms of channeling or coming up with a vision for the country? It's a decentralized leadership system we have. We have 36 state governors that are supposedly independent. We have 774 local governments and a good number of LCDAs that have chairmen of local government as well. So as a nation, how do we come up with that vision that everybody in the state must line up under? How do we come up with that?
Thank you so much. At the end of the day, vision is a picture, right? The mental picture of the preferable future. God gave every single one of us imagination. He gave us our minds, starting from us that are part of this discussion. So what do leaders do? They use their imagination. Is the situation hopeless? Absolutely not. See, what's the essence of leadership? Service, problem solving, right? So while everybody else runs away from problems, leaders actually run towards problems. That's my call to every Nigerian today. Let's run towards our problems. Let's run towards this issue. Leaders leverage challenges to unleash creativity, not only theirs, but the creativity of everybody else. So I'm calling right now to everyone that is a part of this discussion. Use your imagination right now. What's the vision supposed to be? Let's have a picture of a developed Nigeria. Simple. Where are young Nigerians shipping out to other parts of the world? Where are they shipping out to? Better environments, developed economies. Good.
My apologies, Dr. Adeyemi. My sincere apologies. You said this leadership thing we have to have a vision. The question is how? Please don't answer that question yet, because we have a generation of people coming behind us. You, Dr. Additional, and a number of people are saying young people are not liabilities, they are assets. But then, as we all know, it seems that everyone is disillusioned. Who will come up with the vision that they will line up behind? That's the question that you would answer, please, when we return from this break. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Dr. Sam Adeyemi is still with us this morning. Strategic leadership consultant joins us from the USA. Well, so you may want to take that question on now in the light of a decentralized system, a highly disillusioned population, a population of young people that have little or no hope in the country. Everyone wants to get out at the next opportunity. How do we come up with a vision that everyone, particularly young people, the largest demography in the country, would buy into and carry on by themselves?
Thank you so much, Ayam. You know, during our commercial break, hope was rekindled in my heart just watching the commercials, seeing that there's a program, the Democracy 101.5, seeing that we have a conference like the platform coming up and so on. You see, when change begins, it is people that are strategic that catch it on the fringes before it overruns everything. Most people continue with their lives normally thinking that nothing is changing. Honestly, the change has begun. I'll tell you, for example, so talking about the vision thing, right? The vision issue. It's vision actually that makes the heart of a leader. If you take vision out of a leader, there's nothing left. Because someone defined vision as simply moving people from point A to point B. If there's no movement, if there's no improvement, there's absolutely no leadership. And the thing that you sell, you communicate, that makes people willing to go with you from point A to point B is that vision. It's that picture of a better future. You ask, who is supposed to create it? It always starts with individuals. And remember what I said, leadership happens at all levels. Once we abdicate that responsibility for being leaders, we keep empowering the people that have power already. If they are not willing, to change things, then we're stuck. I'm saying it starts with us as individuals. I have had the vision of a developed Nigeria now for some 2 decades. In fact, I became so convinced about it that in our office, we took pictures from developed parts of the world, did some editing, right? Took out the names of other countries, the names of others, their streets, put the names of our own streets in Lagos and other parts of Nigeria. And those pictures look like what Nigeria will look like in the future. Now, what's the next thing a leader does? You communicate that vision, you share it. So right now, the younger people have tools. We have tools now that were not around 25, 30 years ago. We have social media. Your phone right now is your own radio station. It's your TV station. You can push out your message. So it needs to be bottom up and top down. There are amazing people in government who have vision for a developed Nigeria. They need to speak up. Just occupying a position is not enough. They need to leverage their position to speak up. If I was a governor, I would address my state every Sunday evening or Monday. It may be 5 minutes, but I would sell the idea of development. If I was president of Nigeria, I would address the nation every Sunday evening or every Monday, right? Okay, I'm not the president of Nigeria, but I'm the president of my house. So I have social media, platforms, and I can share my ideas from there. I'm asking right now, everyone needs to use their imagination. See that new Nigeria and begin to adjust your own life, to that new Nigeria, that developed Nigeria. I studied engineering. When you want to construct a house, what do? You start with a vision. You must have an idea of what you want to construct, then you tell the architect, they help you to draw it out. But before you draw that blueprint, what do? You identify your needs. What do Nigerians need? We're different, we're diverse. So we need to provide for, we need to accommodate everybody's interest in creating that developed Nigeria. I would say at the level of government, we need to have that national discussion. That's the starting point, right? As individuals, we need to hold those pictures of a developed Nigeria, and then we need to come together. If we will ask the current administration at all levels, nothing else, the one thing we need to ask for is that discussion. We need to agree on where Nigeria is going. If somebody tells me, I want my life to change, I want my finances to change, the first question I will ask them, who do you want to become? And you need to have a benchmark. Have somebody who is achieving something close to it already that you will benchmark against. Who do we want to become as Nigerians? That's a big question right now, and we need to all discuss that.
Pastor Sam, you make it sound so simple, and many Nigerians listening to you will wonder, yet, why is it so difficult? Bukola here, good morning, sir. I'd like to look at it from a more expansive point of view, bearing Africa in mind. And, junta leader in Guinea had cause to address the UN General Assembly just days ago. And here's what he said to world leaders unabashedly. He said, Africa is suffering from a governance model that has been imposed on it, a model that is good and effective to the West, but is difficult to adapt to our realities, our customs, and environment. It is time to stop lecturing us and stop treating us with condescension like children, he said, adding that Africans were mature enough to design their own models of governance. And, I'd like to know what your deductions from this, are, bearing in mind also, part of the groundswell of support that is following, trailing coups in the western belt of Africa, saying that, Africa is better off with benevolent dictators like, the Rwandan president and, others reminiscent of Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso. How do you weigh in on this, Pastor Sam?
Thank you so much, Bukola. Now, those submissions are fantastic. I agree with them to the extent that the people in the western part of the world don't really understand African culture. I said earlier on, leadership is moving people from point A to point B. If my point A is not your point A, you actually don't know where I'm supposed to start from. You won't be able to design the path for me to get to point B. That's if that's really your desire. The average person in the Western world does not know what it means to have power cut 10 hours, 12 hours, 20 hours a day. They have no idea what it means to go down to the river to use buckets to fetch water on your head. They have no idea. They have no idea. When they say shower, it's really shower. In our own part of the world, in Africa, the way most people have shower is you fetch the water in a bucket, you scoop it with a bowl, you pour the water on your head. That's your shower. So they honestly cannot design solutions for us because they don't even understand where we're coming from. However, when it comes to the solutions, you spoke about the coups and the military coups, and that takes me back to the issue of culture. I'll point out one thing. In Africa, whether it is military, monarchy, democracy, or even theocracy, is the same result. I'm not excited about the coups simply because, not because I hate the military or everybody keeps saying, oh, democracy is the best form of government. No, I don't go with all those mantras. That's why I went to school to study leadership. The underlying thing that undergirds everything is that culture where leaders are not accountable, where the person that is leading is too powerful for you to control. It doesn't work with human nature. So Africa we need to create our own solution. Again, I tell you that from a leadership perspective, problems are not problems, they are opportunities. Africa has the opportunity to unleash our creativity. We need to decide which form of government we want. Right now, we're having a mix of democracy and theocracy, democracy and monarchy, right? We're adding military in the mix now. So we need to decide if democracy will ever work. Let me give you an idea. One of the values that must undergird it is equality. I mentioned it earlier on. So the question I'd like to ask is, in Nigeria, does every person believe in equality, that all humans are equal? Even the citizens don't believe it. That's why if you believe it and you want to go lead with it in Nigeria, you will still fail. Because the people don't believe that they are equal, that they have equal rights with the leader. We're still slaves in our mindset. It's the monarchical system in our mindset. Okay, so you can't escape it. Education is the starting point. We need to create that enlightenment. And I'm saying the media has been democratized. There was a time when you went on only one TV station or radio station, you were addressing the whole country. That day is gone. In Nigeria now it's democratized. And I'm saying everybody should use their power. They start from there. Power is first imagined. The more you use it, the more it expands. Sitting down, complaining, moaning, and feeling powerless will never change anybody's situation, right? Run against the problem. Use your imagination, use your creativity. Control what you can control. Don't focus on what you can't control. The little bit of control you have, your own imagination. Once I started believing that it was possible to live a better life, when I started seeing myself, who do you want to become? I defined it. I caught pictures from magazines, stuck them on the wall in my bedroom to shift my thinking, to see a new me. My life started changing. So I'm here, we're discussing today, right?
So that brings us back to the point about vision. Pardon me there. So bearing in mind all of those cultural impediments that you've talked about, you know, our traditional monarchical system of government, in fact, our fault lines, you know, when we come down home to Nigeria, do you see that vision that is being driven by the new administration? And if there's no vision, you know, what direction should we begin to look at?
Oh, well, I I know we have had attempts before at discussing the direction of our country as a nation. We've made attempts before. We need to go back to it. I've not had that vision yet. I'll tell you that. It's not something that somebody is supposed to impose on us. It's got to be a discussion because we're too diverse. It's got to be a discussion. That's why I said earlier on, if we don't get anything from this administration at all levels, we need to ask for that discussion. We need to agree on where we're going. We're like, 14 people in a bus, that have not agreed on where they're going. 14 people going in 14 different directions. We will always have crises. Our leaders will be managing crises. There will be quarreling, ethnic, whatever. That's what we'll be having, because vision is the basis for unity. We need to agree on who we are becoming, who Nigerians are becoming, what Nigeria is becoming in the future. And it needs a discussion where we will speak to one another, not shout at one another, but speak and discuss with respect. Okay? Until then, I've not had the vision yet. The vision is not something somebody is supposed to impose on us. The vision is something that we need to discuss. Let me say also that nation building is not a day's job. So anybody that is expecting Nigeria to change within 4 years is deceiving themselves. I rely again on my training as an engineer. If you're going to build a bungalow, build a shallow foundation, and then within 3 or 4 days, we see your building coming up. If you're going to build a skyscraper, you will be down there digging a big hole, pouring concrete for months. People will wonder what's happening to you. But once you are through with that foundation level, you will be adding layer after layer after layer, floor after floor. A new Nigeria can't be built in 1 day. The people, those of us in the generation that create the vision, we need to accept we're foundation layers. That vision needs to be there for 50 years, 100 years. We're dealing with a principle that was discovered by a Harvard professor, the law of time perspective. The longer the time you take into consideration while making your plans and taking action, the higher you rise. The person or nation or organization that plans for 10 years will always rise higher than the one that is planning for 10 days or 10 months. It's a law. We can't break that principle. It is that principle that has the power to break us. So we need to plan 50 years. So you then know that as a governor or president, your job is to lay a solid part of this foundation. Those of us that are around now also need to know we need to lay that foundation. We need to think long term. Let's have a discussion on who we want to become. Nigeria needs to become a developed country. And I promise you, the culture is consistent across Africa. When we crack the code for Nigeria, we automatically cracked it for the rest of Africa.
Food for thought there, and we hope fatigue doesn't get in as far as that discussion is concerned, because we've had that discussion over and over again through the years. Pastor Sam, it would be remiss of me not to ask this question. Just one more from me. We'd like to know the status of your citizenship. If you're coming back to Nigeria, or if you're in and out, particularly with a view to investing in Nigeria. We know that you've put some structure on ground where leadership is concerned in the past. But Nigeria does need you, and when you are outside the country, it's a brain drain for Nigeria. Do we hope to get Pastor Sam back as brain gain in the country?
Thank you, Bukola, for asking the question. You see, the point is, things have changed. Technology has changed everything. You can be anywhere in the world now, and you can be influencing wherever you want to influence. So the truth is, in terms of influence, my involvement in Nigeria continues. I founded the leadership school 21 years ago, the Daystar Leadership Academy. Over 45,000 people have come through the school. The school is still running. I take classes. I took a class last week, right, leveraging technology. The church is there. I teach in the church. I still preached the sermon at the church yesterday, leveraging technology. I am part of the School of Politics, Policy and Governance, founded by Dr. Obi Ezekwesili. I take my classes. I'm part of the faculty. There's a new leadership school that just I'm part of everything. So I am still fully involved in Nigeria. I'm passionate about Nigeria. I will always be a Nigerian. The influence continues. Physical presence, I'm moving around the world a whole lot more now. In a few days, I'll be in the UK delivering an academic lecture, at Brunel University, and so on. So it's just the season is different. But because of the technology and my passion for the development of Nigeria, my work in Nigeria continues.
So, well, the thing is, because you're such a busy person, anytime we have you like this, we want to throw in all the questions we can throw in at you, hoping that you get to answer all of them. And I know you're smiling right now. But I have more like a double-barrel question. If you can do this real quick, because I know Chamberlain wants to chip in something before you go. This question has to do with, did democracy develop all the other nations that we look up to, so to speak? I mean, the United Kingdom, the USA, and other democracies. Was it democracy that developed them? That's on one side. And the question I wanted to ask you is, in that national conversation or discourse we talked about, what's the role of the local governments and the traditional institutions? While we are waiting for the national to start, can we begin the conversations from our local wards, our traditional institutions, and build up from there to the national?
Fantastic questions. Thank you so much. So, what's the role of democracy in the development of Western civilization? It's just simply that fact. See, I read the book titled Why Nations Fail, right? Written by two professors of economics. The major idea that they found out in their research is that in practically every nation, you have a small group of people called the elite. They use political power to channel economic resources to benefit themselves. What Western countries were able to do was to limit the power of that elite group. The elite class will always be there. But once they brought in that value of equality, you were created by God, I am created by God. I cannot be a slave to you. In the same country. And they compelled the elite to accept it. You can still have your dreams, you can still deploy your skills and so on, do industry, prosper, but don't enslave other citizens. That is what created the platform for their prosperity. So the child of a nobody can become somebody. And Elon Musk can come as an immigrant to the United States and become the richest man in the world. Okay? So democracy, yes, because of the values promoted by democracy, that equality, that freedom to dream and to fulfill your dreams, democracy, yes, contributed to their development, economic prosperity, especially because people are able to try to dream and fulfill their dreams. The second question is very important. Okay, we may not have control over the federal government. Can we start from our communities? Can we start with our local government? Honestly, I think that's the best place to start. We were cracking a joke here yesterday, or 2 days ago. Here in the US, you can actually go to the front of the White House and take a picture with it. If you have time, you can book several months ahead and actually go on a tour of the White House. That's where the president lives and works. So we were saying that in Nigeria, you can't even see Aso Rock, right? Not to talk of going to take a picture with it. So I'm saying here that instead of trying to deal with the presidency, yes, we can actually walk up to our local government chairmen, councillors, leaders in our communities. We can have, not to confront them, not to embarrass them. We can go from a development perspective and have discussions with them. Look, this local government is not your local government, it is our local government. What's your vision for our local government? Okay, so how can we jointly contribute to the fulfillment of that vision? This is our own vision. This is what we want our primary schools to look like. Primary schools are under the control of local governments. Government schools are run down. It's so painful because I went to a public school. The public schools are wretched. Now, some states are doing fantastically well, right? But in some other places, you will weep when you see the schools. We should not sit down. That's where the erosion of our power starts from, and that's where we need to begin to use the power. If you can't have a vision for the whole Nigeria, can you have for your streets? Can you have for your community? Can we discuss with the leaders of our community and then agree on how to make those dreams happen? Some shifts, maybe then actually we will understand better the changes that need to happen in Nigeria. I'll give you an example. A former commissioner told me many years ago when in their state they wanted to generate power. But the law then said if you generated anything more than 10 megawatts, it had to be approved by the federal government. They were pleading and begging with the federal minister for power. They did not get any approval. This was some 20 years ago or so. I'm grateful that now something has shifted there. So Nigerians need to pay attention there. There are things your local government can do. There are things that our states can do if they had the power to do those things. But you have this constitution that is a liability, honestly, that is limiting, stifling. Those are the things we need to discuss, right, at the national discussion that I spoke about. But I think we will get better results if we start from our communities. We should not sit down in our houses and be complaining when there's supposed to be a local government chairman and there are councillors there. Let's start the conversation. It's our country, it's our community. Let us build it. Honestly, because leaders deal with vision, we deal with possibilities. I do not see Nigeria as being a hopeless situation. It is not. I'll tell every young person. I mentioned earlier on, 25 years ago, Naira was 22 to the dollar. Now it is 1,000. And some of us tried. Some of us tried right there. Many other people did. It depends a lot on your mindset. Once you focus, you see, the glass is either half empty or half full for you. Once you focus on the emptiness of the glass, you will be feeling hopeless and powerless. The people that focus on the fullness, even if it's just some small drops that are there, their creativity will kick in. They will multiply the small drops of water and create wealth for themselves. Young people should not give up on Nigeria. We're looking at problems. Those problems are actually opportunities. For some of us, it's easier to prosper in Nigeria than it is elsewhere. I'm saying that because I've been teaching people entrepreneurship for 20-something years now. I have seen some people with that entrepreneurial mindset focus on how to solve problems for people in Nigeria. I've seen them prosper. They could have prospered a lot more than they did. Government policies, unpredictability, disruption in the environment, too much. But in spite of that, they have tried. We must not lose hope on Nigeria. Honestly, I believe that we have an amazing opportunity to build a new Nigeria. We need to create it, a new Nigeria, a developed one.
Yes, indeed, Dr. Sam Adeyemi, Strategic Leadership Consultant. Thank you very much indeed for your time here today.
Thank you so much, Chamberlain. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Well, back in just a moment. Stay on with us. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, as you've seen there, Mr. Muhammad Abubakar joins us. He's a former governor of Bauchi State. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria and two-time Attorney General of Bauchi State. Good morning, sir. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
It's been a while. What have you been up to ever since you left government?
I've been practicing law.
Oh, okay. Judiciary.
Well,
and incidentally, there's a lot of focus on judiciary in
yes,
terms of whether or not it is indeed the last hope of the common man, because as you know, many have not been happy with judgments coming through, not just Supreme Court now, but almost across board. I mean, is this strange? Is it a strange phenomenon for you?
Well, the attitude and the commentaries are strange to me. But the happenings in the judiciary are not strange. for the fact that in most cases, people do not even begin to understand what the judiciary is about, particularly with the advent of social media. We have a lot of commentators out there that do not begin to understand what law is about or how litigations take place. You see, every case is about the pleadings. The pleadings are what the plaintiff has taken to the court that he wants to be done for him, and the counters, the answers by the other party. So everything is about that, and then the evidence that is adduced before the judge or before the court, depending upon which court. So it is based on that and the pleadings and the evidence that courts churn out their judgments. So to a lot of people, judgments may look strange, but that is because they do not know what has been placed before the judges.
Are they not also predicated on precedents and principles of law?
Yes.
But that's what some people think, that it is inconsistent the way some of those judgments come.
Well, the inferior courts are bound to apply judgments of superior courts, you know. And the setup we have of the superior courts is that we have high courts, we have the industrial court, we have the Sharia Court of Appeals, and then we have the Court of Appeal, and then the Supreme Court. All right? The courts at the bottom are bound by the principle of stare decisis to apply the judgments of superior courts. But all depends on the facts that are placed before them.
I know that, in judiciary you say judgment must not just be done, but must be seen to have been done. But I hear lawyers even argue and say, for instance, now, the most recent one, Kanu, where I think the judge, because the response I read from the NMPP's lawyer, one of the lawyers, not counsel to the case, but a lawyer who is a member of the party, an official of the party, says that the judge cannot be calling them cultists. That suggests that, look, justice may not have been delivered on that fair and equity platform, so he finds it worrisome that he would descend and call them cultists. Say, if you don't deliver judgment, do it. Don't descend and begin to call us names. It suggests that there's more to it than meets the eye.
Well, you see, in most cases, what has been happening in Nigeria in recent times, you see lawyers, including my brother senior lawyers, you know, the senior advocates, jumping the gun to make comments on judgments of courts. The judgment of Kano Tribunal is 227 pages. I have seen people making comments before that judgment was even typed in the registry of the tribunal. I mean, that is not fair. You have not seen what has been placed before these judges before you now jump the gun and you begin to make comments. The judges are human, yes. They are fallible. We know that, all right? But when they sit in the hallowed chambers to evaluate the evidence that has been placed before them, you are not there with them. You do not know. I have gone through the judgment as best as I can. Like I said, it's 227 pages, all of it, all right? And I know the industry that has gone into churning out that judgment, whether anybody likes it or not. That judgment is the judgment of that tribunal as at today, all right? As lawyers, we are bound to obey that judgment for as long as it has not been appealed against successfully.
My colleagues may have more questions for you on that matter, but let me ask you this. As a former governor, we know that recently the government did approve 5 billion for states for palliatives, of which 2 billion has been released to the states. But the question now is, because going through the economy, we know the exchange rate to the dollar, we know the cost of petrol across different parts of the country, and the people are feeling the pinch. Now, this is the president who has said he's prepared for this. He took his time. No one should, no pity party for him. He's ready to hit the ground and ensure things work. But as we speak, there are questions for states in terms of their policies and what they're doing to ensure that their people don't, at least they cushion the effect. What is it that is, why is it always difficult, if I could use that word, for states to actually come up with policies that will impact their people positively? Because if they were, there won't be so much attention on the center.
Well, I think what is happening is that over time, as Nigeria was developing, we were creating states, not necessarily on the basis of sustainability of these states. We created them for many other reasons. The reasons may be valid, the agitations for the creation of these states may be valid. But there are states in Nigeria that do not have the requisite economic base for them to succeed and to survive. So maybe this is one of the reasons bedeviling the states. It's not the lack of policies. The policies may be there, but the ability to put practice to these policies.
Is it ability or resources?
Well, ability as in resources. That's what I mean.
Okay,
ability as in resources.
If we could just step back a bit.
Yeah.
The states have been created, all right. Okay, for whatever reasons they were. But I doubt there's any state in Nigeria that does not have a resource. Maybe not developed, maybe not sought yet.
Natural or human?
Natural resources.
Both.
Okay. Both natural and
natural
human
and human.
Okay. So that question again of looking to the center, and many times we find out, no, we have to ensure that we are aligned with the center for us to benefit from the center. But there are things that can be done within the state. I mean, every state generates revenue somehow. Maybe little, maybe much. Some states have more, some states have less, but they generate revenue. So those are taxes. What about developing the resources, the natural resources that within every state? Now, some might say, it's the government that owns all the natural resources beneath the
federal government.
The federal government. But there are licenses the federal government gives to states to mine these resources. So how are they not going in that direction?
We go back to availability of resources. A lot of, for example, the state I govern, we have a lot of mineral resources. But mining these mineral resources, even if you're able to get the license from the federal government, you need the resources to do that. And you will discover that at the end of the month, after we have made the pilgrimage to Abuja for the FAC, all right, and we get back home, and we were able to now pay salaries and pay pension. What remains may not even be able to take care of what they call in government mandatories. Mandatories are, example, feeding of school children in the boarding secondary schools. Mandatories are buying diesels and buying drugs in hospitals. Mandatories are providing potable water for the citizen. Mandatories are paying for power that you are utilizing. So for you to be able to even take care of those, in most cases, you are unable to do that.
But I hear you, I understand that. But what I don't understand is, for elections, we see the way the campaigns go. 10 different people vie for the slot, right from party primaries to the main election itself. They all say we want to lead. We want to change the state. We want to bring down Dubai. We will turn this state to Dubai. And then they get in there, not even one industry. Some of them spend 8 years, not one industry works when they leave office as governors. You can't even see them publish their budget for these states. The National Assembly can't hold them accountable. If people ask questions there, sometimes they arrest the people. So you ask yourself, so what was all that about then, if at the end of the day, they'll be filled with excuses?
Well, I think there are certain basics that we need to address. Nigeria at 63.
Yeah.
There are two ills that may appear very, very simple everyday issues that we haven't been able to take care of in the 63 years of independence of Nigeria. And that is the scourge of illiteracy and poverty. Unless we're able to take care of those, there are so many things that will not go right. Democracy itself will not go right. I have learned that the hard way. You go out during election with a sachet of clean or Omo. You are able to sway a voter to vote one way or the other. It's not because that voter wants to do that, but because of illiteracy, he doesn't even understand the meaning of that one vote that he has. It could change things. Because of poverty, maybe if he's able or she is able to eke out 1 meal in a day, she doesn't have anything remaining, or he doesn't have anything remaining to be able to afford a sachet of clean or sachet of Omo. So that makes that sachet of clean or Omo very, very important to that person. So unless we're able to conquer that, it's an uphill task for us.
Let's go to Lagos.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Mr. Bubakar, you know, the question Nyota asked is very, very instructive and causes need for reflection. You've talked about, you know, lack of resources being the limitation to investing in the development of natural resources, which is very, very important for the development of the subnationals. But I wonder if that is a tenable reason when you consider, you know, the amount that politicians spend on election petitions, when you consider the amount that politicians spend on their electioneering campaigns. Look at the Electoral Act, for instance, and see the ceiling that has been set by the, electoral umpire for the spending on presidential election, for the spending on governorship election, you know, and when you also consider that state governors have access to, you know, an undetermined sum called security vote. So is it really tenable that subnationals do not have enough to develop their natural resources, which has the great potential to transform the regions of this country?
Well, to be very honest with you, when it comes time for politicking, a lot of resources is spent. But if you compare the resources to what states require to first and foremost run the states, you know, because you see, we're operating a system of government where you have 3 defined arms of government. And these 3 defined arms of government have to be run properly. You have to fund them to run. And then you have to pay salaries of workers. So the amount of money spent in electioneering and the amount of money spent during election petitions is pittance compared to what is spent on a monthly basis to sustain government in Nigeria. Maybe the solution is to look again at the system of government we are operating. Maybe it's too expensive for us. If there is an alternative system of government, we may do well to look towards that.
I wonder if that is the only solution. Perhaps we'll need more accountability, you know, to look into the spendings on campaigns and election petitions. But to other...
I agree.
But to other matters now, particularly when it has to do with the economy, the president has been, making pitches, presentations to the international community about, the potential that Nigeria has for investment, saying that Nigeria is not poor and Nigeria has an abundance of natural resources, and the investment will go to the subnationals. But I wonder if you're also thinking about how confident that investors would be in the economy of the country when you consider the continuing weakening of the naira against the dollar. The question that may be asked is, can the CBN guarantee, the investment of these investors, considering the weak naira against the dollar?
You see, it's. I think to me, it's the question of which comes first, the chicken or the egg. If we are able to attract huge investments and we're able to develop the resources, particularly the mineral resources in Nigeria, the effect of that will be to strengthen the naira, because we'll be in a position now to export quite a number of the products we are going to manufacture. So I think if the investments come, it's a good sign that there's a sign of light at the end of the tunnel economically.
In Nigeria.
Hello?
Would you invest in the Nigerian currency? Were you an international investor?
You do not invest in the currency. You invest in the country. You invest in the resources. And whoever comes to invest, they must have done their homework. If they agree to come and invest, be sure that they have done their homework. They know they are going to get return for whatever they are going to invest in this country. And the multiplier effect is that the naira will be strengthened. Because right now, we are a consumer nation. That is what is causing the problem for the naira, basically. We do not produce and export anything. We import everything, including toothpick. So this is the basic problem.
I'm looking at a report now that is listing the natural resources in Bauchi State, and I'm wowed. At a glance now, I'm seeing about 20 natural resources, mineral resources deposited under the ground in Bauchi State. And the question on my mind is, having been governor, how difficult is it for the state governments and the federal government to collaborate to mine or to explore some of these mineral resources for the development of the state, as my colleague has asked? I'm asking that particularly because of that conundrum we have where the governor is in charge of the land, but the federal government owns the resources under the ground. So how is that? Don't you think there should be some kind of collaboration that will make it possible for the states to explore these resources, to develop themselves, and repatriate some funds back to the federal government?
Well, unfortunately, so far, what we do is to only pay lip service to this collaboration between the federal government and the subnationals in the development of the resources of these subnationals. For example, when I took over in 2015, I inherited a moribund company that was incorporated purposely to develop the mineral resources in my state. When I called the MD of the company, I asked him how many licenses we had. He told me that we had virtually no license. That was our own. So I told him, as a lawyer, I said, look, I know I am in charge of the land in this state. So we are going to devise a means whereby, at least even if we do not get these licenses, we will now buy in to the existing companies that are prospecting for minerals in my state. What I will do is that I'll write them that I'm revoking the CFOs of all those sites. And then they will be forced to come and sit down with me and negotiate. We did that. And then the second thing we did was to approach the federal government. We took stock of the licenses that were given to various briefcase holding companies that had not started anything in the state. We now reported all this to the federal government, the mining cadastre, and some of these licenses were revoked, and then we applied for these licenses to be given to us. In addition to that, I was able to commission a company based in the Czech Republic to come and do a survey for us of all the resources, particularly during my time, gold was discovered in Bauchi State. So I told them to particularly look at the gold because I first noticed about the gold because of the security situation that they were creating. Those artisan miners were creating. Within a short period of time, there was an influx of more than 5,000 people into my state, some of them from neighboring countries. They took over a primary school near the site where they were they took over forcefully a primary school. So I had to go there with the commissioner of police and the brigade commander. This was the first time I knew that it was gold that was discovered there. So, and for that reason, I commissioned the company to do a survey for us. They did, during my time, wrote a report, and the report, I trust, must have been handed over to the incoming government in 2019.
Well, there are many areas that we're not able to touch because we press for time, but I think we'll have to schedule some other time because several things that lots of people want to understand about how do we move the country forward. Because I don't know anyone, any Nigerian who doesn't want this country to move forward. So we'll have to find time to schedule another session with you so that we can explore those matters and more to contribute to our quota to see how we can develop the country. But we have to thank you for coming on this morning, sir.
Thank you very much.
Mr.
I'll be
Muhammad,
ready anytime.
Absolutely. Mr. Muhammad Abubakar is a former governor of Bauchi State. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria and two-time attorney general. So he's got a lot for us to talk about when next he comes in. But before we go today, let's read out some messages that you have sent in. Oladile says, talking about the leadership conundrum, he says, one may have his interpretation of leadership qualities. However, there's a huge gap between the expectations of the youth and the leaders. Leaders need to change the perception they have of youths. Leaders need to understand that their energy is going to be caught more than it is taught. Leaders are your actions, words, and attitude worth catching. Okay, well, that's a question he's asking.
Professor Imonoka Enakena Jr. says, leadership conundrum. Nigeria needs a national reorientation agenda that heaped its agenda on loyalty to a united nationhood, where her leaders are committed to building a new Nigeria, a nation that is not being goaded by economic policies that are retrogressive and reprehensible. We don't need leaders whose behaviors are only theoretical and have not been able to make significant impact in the lives of ordinary folks who bear the brunt of poverty that pervades the entire country. Our leaders must realize that we live in very hard times, and Nigerians have become more vulnerable and objectively more diversified and vigilant than they've always been. So our leaders must respond to the demands of building a new Nigeria that will presumably curtail a probable decadent society that's visionless. Professor Nakena Jr.
Goes back to the point about vision. Barrister George Akpambo is also talking about the leadership conundrum, and he says, I must say that Dr. Sam Adeyemi said all that needed to be said regarding leadership crisis in Nigeria and Africa, but the issue is that we never act on any of the things he mentioned. We are known in this part of the world to speak against everything that is gone wrong in our society, but to find solutions to them is our biggest challenge. My question here for everyone listening today is whether democracy is right for us in this part of the world.
Good question. I suspect this is Festus Akinboyewa. Well, First Akin is the tag. It says, NLC's incessant strikes will destroy our economy and livelihoods of millions of Nigerians. No worker should be forced to take part in a strike or other industrial action, especially when the worker may be in breach of their contract of employment. National Assembly must amend the existing labor law to make it mandatory for every worker to vote, and the threshold must be over 50% before a strike or industrial action can be declared. And then lastly, from the same author, the implementation of Samadiyemi's thoughts on Nigeria's leadership conundrum may be constrained by severe lack among many Nigerians. The Nigerian elite leaders have weaponized hunger. This has blunted the capacity of Nigerians to call their leaders to order. Well, a whole load of all of this and many others are on our Twitter handle for you to take advantage of. Thank you for the privilege of being a part of your morning, and have a wonderful week. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Indeed. Have a blessed week ahead. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Neota Igbe.
I am Chamberlain, so have a very good day.